Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Rabyd, a former pastor, turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheism and deconversion issues and any issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. If you want to join the Rabyd Nation, just hit that subscribe button. If you want to buy your citizenship into the Rabyd Nation, then you have to hit that join button and consider your options. I think we're up to 1 citizen so far. Need more. Need more to have a vote. Can't have an election without more citizens. Today I want to, this is of course Sundays with the Rabyd Atheist. I'm a little bit more laid back, a little bit more informal in what I'm trying to say. And so, you know, to me it's more freewheeling and kind of dealing with some of the comments of the day. Just a few announcements. Eventually, once I finish the Job Bible study this week, and then probably next week I'll wrap it up, I'm going to move that to Tuesdays, where I'm going to take on problematic passages of the Bible. Of course, this Tuesday will be Halloween, so might be something special instead. So we'll see what happens. But I want to thank everybody, for supporting the channel, and so we're going to continue to do the Bible study and stuff and things like that. I'm just going to do it on a different day, and I'm actually going to deal with problematic passages of Scripture and different things that I've heard people say. And then also, some of you have noticed that the time I backed it up an hour to 4 o'clock. That's mostly for personal reasons. One of the things I've discovered is I really struggle to get motivated when I get home sometimes to get recordings done, and I want to be at premieres, and I'm just trying out the new time. We'll see how it works. Just altering things. So what's on the agenda today for Sundays with the Rabyd Atheist? Well, I want to talk about the one thing that theists don't accept, or most theists don't accept. I also want to talk about, can you be an atheist and a conservative? And I also want to talk about Job 38 through 41 today. What is the nature of God in that passage, and then I want to address a few comments. But what is the one thing that most theists don't accept? I recently had an experience today, or the last couple days actually, with a couple commenters. And I don't know why I got into it, but I started just responding to them. And one of the things that they kept driving home is the flaws in my position as an atheist. And the questions were basically on mathematics, the laws of logic, and of course the moral argument, which seems to be the theist's favorite toy these days. Just on a personal note, I think the moral argument is actually kind of crappish. I've already talked about it, but my personal opinion is like one of the worst arguments for the existence of God, because there's so much fuzzy gray area on it. And I found myself, these people coming at me, and I was defending my positions, and I suddenly realized, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? I'm not making a claim here. I'm just searching for things. Like when it comes to morality, I really haven't made a lot of decisions on morality, whether it's subjective or objective or a combination thereof. I haven't really looked into moral philosophy because it's not something that I have really had the opportunity to do. I've got limited time available, and so I keep moving forward based on different things, and there's different things I want to study before that. But then I realized, I said, no, wait a minute. As I recall, and I'll post the link to the video above my head, when I talked about the moral argument, there are 2 things that I felt that the apologists needed to do in order to make it work. Number 1, they had to prove a connection between a specific God and the qualities of objective morality, that specific God, that those things made connected. In other words, you have to prove the first premise. If objective morality exists, then God exists. Objective morality exists, so then God exists. Now, first of all, I think you're assuming God in both of these. I know it can be worded a different way in the first premise, but the idea is there's a connection, an if-then connection, between objective morality and the existence of God. Okay, that God is necessary for objective morality. And then the second premise is objective morality exists. And I'm gonna pause here for those of you who are theists. The one thing you refuse to accept is that the burden of proof is on you, not on me. Okay, I as a theist came to this realization very early on that they're right. We're the one making the claim. We have to prove our claim. Okay, we're the ones saying that it's our God, and in particular as a Christian, when I was doing this, I was making the claim that the God of the Bible, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is the God that actually exists. And I need to prove that claim. I need to be the one that gives a reason, okay? Not the atheist. The atheist doesn't have to give anything back to me unless they make the claim there is no God. Then I want to hear that argument, okay? And that's kind of what I'm doing on my series on the case against God, against God's existence. So, and then, this other person was doing a math thing about, well, where did math come from? I'm like, dude, look it up on the internet. The history of math starts with, I think, Pythagoras and a few others, Archimedes, and a few other of these ancient Greek mathematicians, and it's been carried on today. We had created a math as a tool to help us describe and understand the universe a little bit better. We created it. Same with the rules of logic, because we realized, is that good reasoning? And then we started to build an understanding of what better reasoning is. Okay, these aren't laws in the sense that they're past decrees. What they are is their understandings of how logic and mathematics work. Okay, they're tools that we created. I look at the rules of logic and I look at all this stuff as math, even as tools that we have created, okay, as human beings, and nothing more. Okay, and to endow them with spiritual qualities is what you're trying to do. So that's what you have to prove. Okay, for those of you that are making the moral argument, okay, the burden of proof is on you, and this is the one thing you don't accept, is the burden of proof. Most theists will sit there and attack me. Okay, well, I'm not accepting attacks on my position anymore. If you attack my position, I'm just going to ignore the comment. I am waiting for you theists to accept the burden of proof and place before me an argument that actually proves whatever God's existence. I don't care if it's Thor to Yahweh to Allah. Okay, give me an argument that I haven't already heard. I've done my Helping the Apologist series. I'll link that above my head too. Go to that, and I will tell you where your arguments are weak from my perspective. Okay, it is your job to accept the burden of proof and then give me a case that meets the burden of proof. It is not my job. I don't even know what stance to take on subjective or objective morality. The one thing I do know is no theist has proven the connection between objective morality and God, or that objective morality has existed. That's what you have to do. I know what the human history of mathematics and the rules of logic are. I can look it up. You have to prove that those things come from God, and you have to prove it conclusively. Otherwise, you're just talking out your butt. Okay? So you're just, you're attacking me, but what is it part of it? If you prove me wrong, that doesn't prove you right. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether the gaps are shrinking or getting larger. What basis do you say that this gap in our knowledge, your particular God belongs there? Why do you say that? You can't just by default slide in because nobody can explain things at that moment. There might be a reason, we just haven't discovered it yet. Okay, accept the burden of proof. I'm trying to get you theists to understand you're never going to reach an atheist until you accept the burden of proof and try to come up with better arguments, because most of them, quite frankly, are pretty sad. I find the moral argument actually, I didn't rank the arguments in order, okay, of what I think was most convincing to the end, because I don't find any of them convincing, obviously. But which ones have the most merit, which one have the least merit? I would put the moral argument at the bottom. I know it's Christianity's favorite toy along with the cosmological argument, but I think both of those are at the bottom because it doesn't really tell me what God we're proving. Okay? Neither one of those actually proves the existence of any particular God. It's very, very vague. It's the other arguments, that do that a little bit better, and not those two. Okay, but I don't buy them all. So your job as a theist is to accept the burden of proof and give me the proof that meets the burden of proof. Just for the record, if you come at me in my position, that's fine. I may respond and make clarification, but it's not proving your point. if you want to prove the existence of God to me, accept the burden of proof, accept the thing that most theists don't accept the burden of proof, and give me evidence that meets the burden of proof. That's what you got to do. Quit running away from it and start accepting it. 2, can you be an atheist and a conservative? Now, there's a lot of remarks over the years that I've heard from atheists about how most people who become atheists turn to the left. And there seems to be some good reasons why they do that. I think the reason I turned to the left, say on LGBTQ issues, is I no longer had an authoritative thing telling me that I needed to hate people because of their sexual preferences or orientation. I don't have that anymore. So yeah, I love y'all, no matter where you're at. I think I've said it before, I have the strongest thing about trans there could be, because I don't really care what your rationality is. If we have the medical technology and you want to change from one gender to another, and I hope we get better at this, then that's your business. You're free to do with your body as you see fit. Okay, I'm not going to stand in front of your rights or any of that. Do I have my questions about whether your thing is real or not? Well, with some of the arguments, yes. Okay, I agree with rationality rules in that, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, or I'm a woman trapped in a man's body is kind of a crap argument. I mean, it's essentially the same argument as I'm a Christian because God lives inside me. Okay, there's no evidence or proof of that. I think neurology and other things are better proofs for trans. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, I just think that argument's crap. And you need better arguments. Okay, and we should always be striving for better arguments no matter what we are. Okay, and so in that case, yes, I turn to a more liberal side of things. I do realize that there's a lot of social dynamics that causes people to be what they are. I certainly don't accept people as sinners anymore. So I do believe that good societies can be achieved, and I believe that as an anti-theist, that one of the biggest obstacles to having good societies is these religious beliefs that cause us to hate each other for no reason, or be prejudiced against each other for no reason. Okay, because to me there's no reason. Okay, so I want to make that abundantly clear. Okay. So, but have I stayed on the right on a couple of things? Yeah, because of skepticism. I'm going to link an article in the description, and this is a young generation Zer talking about how his skepticism led him to be both an atheist and a conservative. Okay, that he's very skeptical of the left because the left seems to be overwhelmingly, we need to put our trust in government. And he says, my skepticism says we probably really shouldn't do that because government has proven itself to be just as shady as organized religion. So, valid point from my perspective as a libertarian atheist. So, I think, yeah, you can be. I think this is the one thing that I want to come at, because a lot of people make a lot of assumptions about what atheists are. That you have to be a secularist, and you turn left on this, and you turn left on everything. You're a liberal Democrat, secularist person, and atheism is that part of that. Atheism simply is, I don't accept your God claim. That's it. Okay, politics, economics, all that stuff, you can be anything. What I do hope is we're all applying the same critique as atheists that we did towards religion and God towards everything else. Okay, so I still have some very conservative views on some things because I look at it from a skeptical point. Like, for instance, smaller government. I'm a Second Amendment rights advocate, okay, for the same reason that the Founding Fathers were. Their rationale, okay? I don't trust government because I can actually read the newspaper, okay? And the government hasn't given me any more reason to trust it than organized religion has. Okay, so I can be skeptical of everything the government does, left, right, or center. Okay, so from my perspective, you can be a conservative. You can be anything and be an atheist. And the reason I'm addressing this question is because there's a lot of people that assume that if I become an atheist, I have to become a liberal. That's not true. I'm a libertarian. I've been a libertarian for a long, long time. Okay, past all the religion, past all the politics, past all the presidents. And the reason is, from a political standpoint, I don't see a better political philosophy. All the other political philosophies, in my opinion, involve, the overreach of authority on the individual. Okay, so to me, the amendment that supports individual rights against the government, those amendments are more important than all the rest of them. So there you have it. But you can be atheist and conservative. And I found this young man who was writing this article, I think, very interesting, because he says his skepticism is what led him to be both an atheist and a conservative. So there you have it. It is possible, and it's obviously happening. It's interesting. Gen Z is very interesting because all the data I've read, and I wish I could remember where I saw it, but all the data I've really saw is Gen Z girls, females, tend to move to the left. Gen Z boys are conservative, very conservative, but not necessarily religious. Now, a lot of you forget that. I want to make another point about this atheist and conservative thing. A lot of people may not be old enough to remember that once upon a time, blah, blah, the Republican Party was not dominated by the religious right. There was a moment, maybe one of you in the comments can correct me on my political history, but I think it was Barry Goldwater ran for the Republican nomination on a platform that didn't involve the religious right, and he was like the last one to do so. Okay, because there was this divide in the Republican Party about whether to accept the religious right into their political viewpoint. Most of the people that were religious just fell one way or the other. And there was this moment, this watershed moment, I think, where the Republican Party decided to embrace the religious right, much to the chagrin of some of the rest of the party. So you need to remember that conservative morals and ethics and religious ethics are not necessarily connected. In fact, I think they're antithetical to each other. The ideas of smaller government and liberty and freedom are antithetical to any religion that believes in an authoritative God. I find, Shapiro and Prager to be laughable because they're sitting there talking about how God exalts the freedom of the individual. Have you read the flipping Bible? Okay, there's nothing about it. I mean, I'm going to get to that here in a minute in Job. Okay, but there's nothing about this, the religion and the idea of conservative freedom and individual freedom and economic freedom, which are actually more libertarian, by the way, that is antithetical, that work together really well. Okay, the religious side of it, you really have to twist the meaning of a lot of scriptures to get to this idea of liberty, God rising up and defending liberty and freedom. It doesn't really exist. Okay, not in the Bible. In case in point, we're going to move on to my next thing, Job. I'm going to do this one. This one fascinates me, and I read these chapters a couple of times. Because this time through Job, I've been very, very interested about one thing, and that is God. How is the character of God portrayed? Because this is like the oldest thing in all of Scripture. Like, this is the oldest tradition. A lot of people scratch their head about that, but it's like the reason biblical scholars think this, okay, is because, and it's older than the Torah, by the way. Okay, and the reason we think that is there's no quotes of the Torah in Job. Every other book has a quote of the Torah, the law, the Pentateuch in it. Not Job. Job doesn't have that. Okay, and that's why we think it's an older tradition. And it's also a tradition that doesn't show the signs of a lot of editing, which to me sounds like this is the first kind of story. Now, this does a nasty knock to a lot of people in New Testament studies that say, well, narrative stories didn't really appear until the Gospels appear. That's what makes it believable. Job's a narrative story, and it's 600 years before the Gospels, okay? At least, if not 700. Okay, so the idea that narrative story and history narrative wasn't present, the Old Testament disproves that itself, okay, that there's a narrative history in it and all that other stuff. So we have this story and this literature, and here we are in Job 38 through 41, and God starts to speak, and he starts to reveal a lot of his character. Now, we need to remember something. God knows why he tested Job, okay, because the devil came to him, Satan came to him and said, hey, have you considered my servant Job? And Satan goes, yeah, mess with him and he won't be so loyal. Okay, and so God allows, Satan to mess with him to test him. He's not punishing him for anything. He's testing him to see if he'll stay loyal. Kind of shitty, really, mob boss kind of mentality. But, and so the test, the test doesn't get Job off his thing. So we get to this point, and we've had Job and his three friends dialoguing back and forth. Job's friends are giving him a lot of reasons why he should admit his sin, repent, whatever. Nobody gets punished like this if they didn't, they didn't do something wrong. Problem is he's not being punished because we know the beginning of the story. We know he's not being punished. He's being tested. And Job kind of says, I don't know what I did wrong. And he keeps holding on to his integrity. Then last week I talked about this character, Elihu, that kind of speaks for God and, calls out Job on a lot of things. Okay? And then we get to this. Okay? All of a sudden this whirlwind apparently is appearing. And God begins to appear out of this whirlwind and talk to Job. So what does God reveal about himself in this 4 chapters of him talking to Job? Well, the first thing he does is God talks at length about how long he's been around and how powerful he is. Chapter 38 is almost entirely of where were you when I did this, and can you do this? In other words, what he's telling Job is that, dude, I've been here, done that, got the t-shirt, and I'm the most powerful thing around. That's how he starts his case. And then we hit chapter 39. And basically God is like, look at the trees, look at what I've created. Look at all the trees, look at all the stuff, look at what I did. Okay? You see my longevity, you see my power, you see my creative acts. And so what is God's defense of his actions? God looks at Job and says, what right do you have to question me? What right do you have to question me? In other words, Job, I don't have to give you an answer. I'm God, and I can do what the hell I want. Okay? And Job, who the hell do you think you are? That is what Job gets told by God. Now, this is funny, because I'm asking the question, what harm would it have done for God to tell Job what was up? What harm would that have done? Okay, the test is over. He's passed it. Why couldn't God say, you know what, Job, Satan came to me and said you wouldn't be loyal if I tested you. So I had you test it. And you passed the test, Job. Good job, A+. Does God do that? No. What he does is he says, who the hell do you think you are, Job, to question me? I'm the guy that's been around. I'm the guy that's most powerful. I'm the guy that created all this stuff. Okay? And what right do you have to question me? Who the hell do you think you are? That's God's answer. And I find it weird. What harm would the truth have done to Job? What would it have done? Other than it would have made God look bad. Let's think about this. If I'm Job and God says, I was doing this to test you to see if you were really loyal. And he's like, really, you killed my 10 kids, destroyed all my stuff just to see if I was real? Did not my sacrifices every week do that? Did my faithfulness to try to follow whatever commands you give me, wasn't that enough? You've got to destroy everything I love and care for in order to test me? He doesn't. I'm sorry, I think God has the right approach if he's trying to protect his sovereignty against Job and anybody else. He's basically saying, might makes right. I'm the big dog. I don't have to give you a reason. Shut up and sit down. Who the hell do you think you are? And I'm not trying to be rude, but at that point, I've got to ask some questions about the character of God as being presented by the book of Job. Because to me, this God is basically saying the ethics that I enforce are right, might makes right. Now, if we were to take the history as it is, we don't know what's about here. Where does Job fit into the history? Don't know, really. We do know it's the oldest textual tradition that we can find. But what kind of picture does that present of God? It presents a picture of God who isn't really interested in what's morally right or wrong, because what's morally right or wrong is whatever he does. It doesn't affect him. Okay? It's easy to test people when it doesn't affect you. And this is the problem that I have with the book of Job. It's not so much what happens to Job as how God describes himself. How the writer of Job basically characterizes God as this king on a throne that is not allowed to be questioned. He's not allowed to have anything done to him. And what's sad about that God is that shows a lot of insecurity on God's part. Because if God was really secure in himself, he was really a secure individual, he would have just told Job what happened. And he would have said, you know what, Job, you were right. Okay, he is going to tell his three friends that he was right. Okay, that it was okay to question him in that sense, that he was right and they were wrong. But he doesn't tell Job that directly. He doesn't tell Job what is up. Now, apparently they figured out what was up because the story is there. But then again, maybe it's just a good literary story. Maybe it's just a parable to tell a lesson. And I hate to say it, but it doesn't put God in a very positive light. God himself kind of comes off as an asshole here. Because he's basically saying, you know what, dude? Doesn't matter. I'm God. I've been around for a long time. I made all this stuff. I've got all the power. Who are you? Who are you to question me? Who the hell do you think you are? And we'll see what Job's response is when we get to chapter 42 in the last chapter. And that'll probably be the end of this Bible study. And then the Bible study will move to Tuesdays at 4. But I want to complete it here so we don't get disjointed. I want to deal lastly with a couple of comments. A couple of people, one person commented about my Israel-Hamas observations that there was, that it's too reductive. And I know what that means. He's basically saying, I'm reducing it down to one thing. And not really. I'm saying that the main kernel, the root of the problem between Hamas and Israel is the religious wars that have been going on, God knows how long, or whoever knows how long. Do the political and social aspects exist? Of course they do. And they are causes for a lot of people to be angry and doing all that stuff. But you will never understand Israel, okay, and all that until you understand the religious conflict. I mean, I remember when I was doing social studies teaching, and I was teaching world geography, and we got to this area of the Middle East, and we talked about the three religions in Palestine and Israel, and one of my kids literally said this statement out of the blue. I said, boy, I bet you that really leads to a lot of fights. And yeah, it does. And to think I know your comment said you didn't diminish the religion. I guess probably maybe you and I have a different priority on what this is. To me, it's religion, then it's politics, and then it's social issues, okay? You might even throw social issues above politics with me. You seem to be saying that the political and the societal issues come and then religion's last. It's there, but it's not. And I'm going to effectively say it needs to be above everything else because this is how this started. So there's that aspect. Other comment, man, you guys, you theists, I love you, but when I did my problem of evil video this week on Wednesday as one of the arguments against God's existence, I got so many comments, I immediately knew you didn't watch to the end. Because I literally say at the end, I think this is a crap argument against the existence of God, except for one type of God. If you have an omnipotent, classically omnipotent God that's classically omnibenevolent and lacks imagination on how to create the world, then that's the God that this kind of gets rid of. All the rest of the gods are safe, okay, because it doesn't attack them. It doesn't go after them. And I never got so much stuff about stuff I didn't even say. Or, I actually agree with many of you that this argument is kind of shit. Okay, I think a lot of atheist philosophers have given up on it because it's kind of shit. So it's okay, all right? But, man, it's amazing to me how people prove over and over that they don't really read, they don't really read, anything. They just read the title and have to make a comment. Maybe you should listen to the whole video before you think. I know I do. I'd like to listen to whole videos before I make a comment. Well, we're approaching the half-hour mark, so I'm going to call this a Sunday with a Rabyd Atheist concluded. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate all the likes, shares, and subscribes. I appreciate my members. Keep doing the things that you do. The watch hours continue to climb. Sooner or later, we'll get that ad revenue. And I have as an ultimate goal about 10,000 subscribers. We seem to be growing at least one or two every day, at least at present. So I'm hoping to do a few things. I have tentatively scheduled. One of the interviews I was supposed to have fell through. At least it fell through to me. I haven't heard anything back from them. But then again, I also noticed their channel had a lot of troubles and some issues. So maybe they're dealing with bigger things than interviewing me. So I'll give them a break. The other one, Tim Mills and I are still scheduled, in the coming days to get together, I think this coming week, to sit down and do an interview. So we'll see how that goes. I'll let you know more about that. I'm actually kind of excited for that interview. It's a long time in coming. So we'll see what happens there. So thank you very much for your support. We'll see what goes on. I appreciate every single one of you. Join the Rabyd Nation. Join it while it's still young. Become a citizen. Pay for it. Pay for it to become a citizen. You won't regret it. I am a benevolent dictator. Thank you very much. More benevolent than God, anyway, in the Bible. So thank you very much, and stay with it and do the things that you do. I appreciate every single one of you. Live your best life. You only get one go around, so make sure it's a good one. Don't waste your time and your opportunities and your money on the trappings of religion that don't lead anywhere. Give them to your love, to yourself, and to your family, and I'll see you next time.